And welcome back to the Walking for Health and Fitness podcast, the show that helps you take the simple act of walking and turn it into a powerful tool for physical health, emotional balance, and lasting fitness. Today's episode is a special one. Have you ever wondered why walking feels so good? Or sometimes it doesn't? Why motivation comes and goes even when you know walking is good for you? Well, the answer might just be in your brain chemistry. My guest today is Dr. Loretta Breuning. She is the founder of Inner Mammal Institute and the author of the best-selling book, Habits of a Happy Brain. Her work explains how our brains are wired for survival using 4 key chemicals: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphin, and how these happy chemicals drive everything from our habits to our moods to our motivation. In this conversation, we dig into why walking is such a powerful mood booster, the real story behind runner's high, and why endorphins aren't your everyday happiness chemical, how to rewire your brain's reward system so you feel good about sticking with your healthy habits, and what to do when you fall off track and how to bounce back. That's one of the big problems that people approach me about. What do I do when I stop a day or two and then that slides into a week or two? Okay, so whether you're just getting started on your walking journey or looking to deepen your understanding of what motivates you, this episode is packed with real science, relatable insights, and practical takeaways. So lace up your shoes, pop in your earbuds, and get ready for a fascinating look at the brain behind the behavior. Welcome, Dr. Loretta Breuning. And since this is the Walking for Health and Fitness podcast, and before we dive into talking about brain chemicals, are you a walker yourself?
I absolutely am. And I have to say that I'm not a great athlete. So walking really gives me something to feel like I've gotten my exercise done. And I happen to live on a very steep hill, and I have to walk 3 blocks steep uphill in order to get to a flattish area. So it really gives me a sense of accomplishment. And if I don't climb that hill every day, I feel very guilty.
That's interesting. It's funny you say you're not an athlete because so many people that I talk to who are athletes says, "Well, I'm a high school teacher, so I'm around a lot of other male teachers, and we were all great athletes in our heads before we became teachers." And they all, I've been walking for quite a while now, and they look at me like, "What? You get in shape doing that?" And then as they are aging, they are getting hurt doing different
Yeah.
activities, and
Yeah.
they come to me and say, "Hey, tell me about this walking thing." And I've helped a number of them with keeping in shape by walking. So that's really it's interesting. You say you're not an athlete, but I think as we age, walking becomes a great athletic
Yes.
endeavor
Yes.
for sure.
And I had this interesting experience. I used to play tennis, and I played with older women, and they were all in pain from playing tennis. And sometimes they would actually take pain relievers before they played. And I thought, that's the stupidest kind of exercise if you have to take a pain reliever before. So that's when I switched to walking.
Yeah, and I had a pain issue myself. That's how I got into this whole thing. So I could appreciate that as we get older. So, in general, before we get into the chemicals, and this might lead into it, what does walking do for your mood when you walk?
So I guess a few things. First, in a way, it's kind of like eat your vegetables. Like before people decided that vegetables tasted good, like I just did it because it felt good for me. So I can't, like I have to make myself do it whether I feel like it or not.
Okay.
But I do it in the middle of the day when I have been at my desk for a couple of hours. So it's a very welcome break at that point. So that's another thing it does for me. And then another thing is I always listen to an audiobook when I'm walking. And so it's real entertainment.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I found, and I think this will lead into the happy chemicals. I was hurt. I was a runner, hurt all the time, much like your tennis partners. And I thought that's a natural part of running. I've run my whole life. I've always been hurt, dealing with an injury with running. Once I started walking to get back in shape with the idea of running again, I had been out of work for 4 months. I realized, oh my God, this is awesome in that I had all this time, one, to think, which in my head at the time I started this, my son was in middle school, so life was hectic with that. I was a school teacher, commuting and all of this, and all of a sudden I started with 10 minutes just to get back in shape. And as I was doing it, the my mindset just was like, whoa, what is this? This is unbelievable. Because I ran, but I never had that epiphany while I was running. They talk about runner's high. I missed that because I never got that. So,
Oh, really? That's so interesting. That's one
yeah.
of my big inspirations in my work. So, if I can explain,
Hmm.
so there are a lot of different kinds of chemicals that make us happy.
Okay.
And the one that causes runner's high is the first one that got popular attention. So, that one, endorphin, a lot of
Endorphin.
people think of that as the source of happiness and confuse it with the other chemicals, which is not people's fault because it's often misrepresented that way. And so people think that running to get a high is the way to feel good. But in fact, endorphin is the body's natural morphine, opioid,
Mhm.
and it's only triggered by real physical pain. And we are not designed to inflict pain on ourselves to feel good. So
Right.
runner's high is just not the path to happiness. And I really disagree with all of that mindset.
Yeah, I felt the pain, I'll tell you that, and I never felt like wow, like that. Maybe I'm thinking run as high as was a bliss that I just missed that everybody else was getting. I don't know. So when let's get to the chemicals here. When we exercise, like what's going on inside of our brains?
Sure. So, just to answer the specific question,
Hmm.
when we exercise, so if you exercise to the point of pain, that can trigger endorphin. But you
Okay.
you were specific. You didn't get it from pain, possibly because you had been doing the pain thing for so long that we all habituate.
Okay.
Um,
Interesting.
or maybe the opposite. Maybe you were able to stop before you really got to the pain point. I don't
Mm.
know. But anyway, that's what triggers it. So I study the chemicals from an animal perspective.
Okay.
So if you imagine that a lion is catching a zebra and rips its flesh open, and the zebra is in pain, but it's still able to run for its life because
Okay.
the job of endorphin is to mask pain so you could save your life. So if you imagine a caveman and he falls into a hole and has to get out, but he broke his leg. So
Mhm.
endorphin gives you about 15 minutes of pain relief so that you can take a little bit of action to save your life. And
Oh,
then
interesting.
after that, you feel the pain because you need to know not to walk on a broken leg.
Wow. Okay. So 15 minutes of how that's it. How did we in the research, how did that come about to actually discover that? Because
Good question.
that's interesting.
So there's this book called Molecules of Emotion. And
Okay.
the person who figured this out, Candace Pert, and wrote the book PERT, she said that the only reason opioid, heroin, codeine, morphine, they're all the same thing, or oxycodone today is,
Mm.
all the same thing. So the only reason they have an effect on us is because they fit a receptor. And the only reason we have the receptor must be because we have a natural form of that chemical. Otherwise, wouldn't it wouldn't fit the receptor. So then
Okay.
she went looking for a chemical that fit the receptor that had a structure that was similar
Oh,
to
wow.
heroin, morphine.
Wow.
This was some years ago, and that sort of unlocked the general understanding of chemistry, emotions, receptors. And if I could explain, so the rest of the story is that when people go to the gym or run or exercise uh, to what would they call performance or peak, like pushing yourself really hard, which I'm not advocating, but when people do this, they so they have another all the other happy chemicals are triggered for different reasons. And you can trigger them in dozens of ways, but exercise is one of them. So you go to the gym, you have camaraderie, and that's oxytocin. Or some people run in groups, or some people do that like cycling in a group, or even they just track their performance in a group. So that any camaraderie is oxytocin. But then we have this urge to win, to be in the one-up position, to have social dominance. And needless to say that one way to get that is through one kind of athletic performance or another. And again, I'm not saying anybody should do this, but this is a attractive thing. Then that's the good feeling of serotonin. Then there's a good feeling of dopamine, which is any time you reach a goal, to put it in very simple terms. And in daily life, it's not always easy to reach a goal because you can't control the world. And so athletic performance gives you a goal that you have some control over, and in that way stimulates your dopamine.
Interesting. Okay, so you mentioned dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin in there. So I'm assuming these are all part of the happy chemicals in our brain that you talk about. So,
Yes,
so let's dive more into that. Basically, what are they all, and do we have control over them in our
good.
lives that we can like you know, like turn them on and off in a sense to control how they affect us?
Sure. A short answer would be we have control, but very little.
Very little.
And
Okay.
so,
Okay.
therefore, building that control is a very valuable skill. Rather
Mm.
than just saying, well, we don't have control, is to learn what controls them. So, here's a simple example. We're sort of doing things to control them all the time, but we don't know it. So, when a person gives himself a goal, like, I'm going to get this project done, and then I'm going to get up and go to the vending machine and buy a candy bar. So I'm not recommending that, of course, but like if a person does that, if that sparks dopamine,
Okay.
both the goal and the candy bar.
The reward.
So
Okay.
there are endless ways to cite a goal that we can reach toward. And every time we take a step toward it, we get more dopamine. So that's the way we're managing it. And the more aware we are of that, the more we can find good ways to manage it.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So that's dopamine. So what are the other happy chemicals that you talk about?
Sure. So again, I studied these because I was reading about the animal brain, and I
Mhm.
read mention that animals have these chemicals, and I was very surprised. And in animals, they can't disguise their motives by saying, "Oh, I wasn't thinking that. I don't care about winning." But really, animals are very competitive. And it was discovered that when a monkey dominates the monkey next to it, like that's my banana,
Mhm.
they get a little bit of serotonin. And so when let's say you play poker with someone and you draw the card that you need and you feel like you're going to win.
Yeah.
So that's a serotonin feeling. So
Mhm.
it's natural. And obviously, there could be bad ways of getting it, and you could grab other people's bananas, and that's not nice. So I'm not advocating that. But the bottom line is that we really want that good feeling of winning. So we're all challenged to find healthy ways to stimulate it.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's interesting. How did you specifically get into this? I mean, other than you talked about reading about the animal brain, but what caused you to continue pursuing this study, this line?
Well, you mentioned having child in middle school, and and that takes up a lot of your energy. And yeah, so I was raising children, and I was also a college professor for 25 years,
Yeah.
and I was, let's say, frustrated by the lack of motivation I saw in the students around me.
Okay,
I
another
was
question.
frustrated by teachers, professors not enforcing any criteria.
Okay.
And I was frustrated with academic psychology because it was selling this warm and fuzzy view of human motivation that said, oh, it doesn't matter, just the joy of learning will lead everyone to excel in the end. So we should not have any criteria or judgment, but like we should just give positive feedback to any behavior at all. And I had been surrounded by that mindset since college, and I started to think it didn't work.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
So
then
then I
what?
started reading other books about motivation when I read like one little monkey study and another little monkey study. So then I just started reading lots of monkey books.
Okay. That's interesting. So that whole motivation thing with students you talked about, um, for my what I do with Walking for Health and Fitness, I educate about walking, and I get this same question from so many people, and it's this. Their problem is that they know it's good for them. They know when they do it, they feel good. And what happens is they hit that wall in the sense of they miss a day or two, and then I call it the slide. That
Mm,
day or
mm,
two
mm.
turns into a week or two. So, what can someone do in that case? Like working with the little bit we could do with the brain chemistry. What can someone do in that case? Because that seems to be the biggest problem that I hear people have when we talk about fitness.
Yeah, sure. So first, our brain wires based on experience. So when you have a positive experience, that builds up a pathway to your positive chemicals. But sometimes walking can be a negative experience, in my opinion. If a person is in a bad mood and they spend the whole time replaying negative thoughts, then they're not going to have a positive association for walking. So they need to do something, or even they may feel guilty, like that they should have been doing something else with the time. So whatever negative association for walking that they've created, they need to create a positive association. So there's some simple ways to do that. Oh, first, one other negative association in a way is that there's this current belief, I think, that you should have this sudden joy when you walk in the trees. And if you don't have that joy, you think, what's wrong with me? I'm not doing it right. Maybe I should do something else. So, our positive associations are created from early experience because that's how our brain wires. If you want to build new wiring in adulthood, it takes sort of training your brain the way you train a dog to do a trick. So, you have to consciously arrange a treat for yourself.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, there's different kinds of treats that you could do. So, a very simple one would be listen to comedy while you're walking, because then you have the joy of laughing, which is endorphin. You have the positive expectation, the dopamine of anticipating that you're going to laugh the next time you walk. And you have the distraction. You turn off the negative thought loop because the comedy is filling your thoughts. And person doesn't like comedy, I'm saying choose something else to listen to that you like, that you enjoy,
Mm,
rather than something that you feel like you should be listening to,
mm.
something that actually stresses you, like a lecture on money management or losing weight,
Right,
that's
right.
just going to add more stress. So, and then when you're done with the walk, give yourself something positive. Once again, just make it something you like. So, if you want to watch television for 20 minutes or something, or if you want to have a treat, just make it something you like. And then that's going to wire you to connect the thing you like to walking.
Mm, okay, I like that a lot. That ties in like to what I said with the running. I never got that runner's high, but I never listened to anything when I was running. I was too afraid to cars and everything like that. When I did start walking, though, that was one of the things that really drew me to it. I had the opportunity, put the headphones in, and that would found things that I like to listen to. Now it's funny you say about things you like because if I did listen to a money management thing, that kind of like got me. I'm like, I really want to know about this, but it wasn't as joyful. So I found that walking, listening to what I liked really did help. So that's great, great advice.
Yeah, but of
And
course, anyone who likes
yeah.
money management, go for it. I'm
Oh,
not
yeah,
saying it's
yes.
bad. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just use your own positive response as a guide because if I just may say, so the pathways in our brain that lead to our happy chemicals are built when we're young.
Okay.
And the ones that you build when you're young are so big, sort of like the highway system. And so uh, you're going to default to them. So anytime you can build on those old highways that you have, you're better off rather than like if somebody says, oh, yoga will make you happy, but if that doesn't make you happy, you're not going to build a big pathway in adulthood. So find a way to build onto the foundation you have.
Build. Okay, so that foundation or baseline, I think it's somebody you talked about baseline. Would that be what you're talking about here? Like we have this baseline when we were younger, established, and then is it possible to raise that baseline as we get older?
Yeah, I don't say baseline.
You don't say
So
ba
maybe
Okay,
somebody else said that.
okay,
So I never talk about levels because in
okay,
my opinion, that's the medical model. And
okay,
then so the way the happy chemicals work is that you're supposed to get a little spurt when there's an opportunity to meet a need. That's their job is to say, hey, pay attention. Here's a good opportunity. Release energy, go for it. And then as soon as you go for it, the good feeling stops because it already did its job of getting your attention to an opportunity.
okay,
So nobody has them all the time. And it doesn't really help people, in my opinion, either to say, this person has too much, this person has too little, because
okay,
it's not about the quantity, it's about what situation turns them on. So
mm,
if a person only gets excited about ordering a pizza, then it's the same chemical. But like if I had a high baseline all the time by ordering pizza all the time, that would not be good.
right, okay. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Um, so let's see. All right, so now so you have the four, you talk about your four happy chemicals, right? There are dopamine, endorphin, oxytocin, serotonin. We also conversely have cortisol in our lives. Okay,
Yes.
what's so you have like almost like a 4-to-1 ratio just talking about these, but what is the importance of cortisol? Because all I listen to like self-development people and they talk about got to lower that cortisol level. But is that really the be all and end all to keep it low? I mean, there has to be an importance to having that, no, to having cortisol.
Yeah. So yeah, there's so many different views on this. So you're right that there is this new view that cortisol is what wakes you up in the morning and gets you out of bed, and therefore it has a job. And we we have it because it has a job. But the way I think of it is like happy chemicals are a forward gear in a car, and stress chemicals are a backward gear in a car. So, stress chemicals, I call them threat chemicals because stress sort of has been overused. And people use the word stress to sort of blame the world. But a threat chemical is like your brain has defined something as a threat and it makes you feel bad. And the bad feeling tells you to pull back from the potential threat. And in the animal world, obvious example is predator threat. And there's this view, some people say they have too much, some people say they have too little. This one line of research, though, that says you wake up in the morning with cortisol and then it's supposed to lower throughout the day. But in my opinion, that's not very reliable because so many people wake up with an alarm clock. And to me, an alarm clock is terrible cortisol, right? Like here you are in this nice, relaxed
Mm,
state, and then you have a state of alarm, literally.
yeah.
And so I don't think it's great to start your day with more cortisol than necessary.
Okay.
I think you need to save the cortisol for its real job, which is to tell you don't waste any more energy in X, but pull back and find a better opportunity to invest your energy. So that's like a non-alarmist way of looking at it.
Okay. Okay. So, um, hmm, cortisol. All right. So, trying to come up with like where we could take this. So, would well, let's get back into like the fitness and walking. Would um, would walking then naturally help you lower your cortisol? If you were out there exercise and for the right reason, you like to get out there, you like to be in the sunshine, you like the heavy breathing, getting in shape, does that naturally help you lower that cortisol, that threat chemical?
Yeah, but it's really useful. This is my main thing about it.
Yeah.
Everybody is stimulating their cortisol with neural pathways built when they were young, because that's when
Okay.
our brain gets wired.
Okay.
So one person is always worried about X, and another person is always worried about Y. And it's hard to turn it off. And we all know that feeling
Mm,
that we try to turn it off and we can't.
mm,
And with our intellectual brain, we can find proof that we really should be worried about
mhm.
this thing. But then we could be with someone else who's living the same life, but they're not worried about that at all. They're worried about some other thing. So we all see proof of whatever we're wired to worry about. Now, if you go for a walk and you spend the whole time thinking about that thing that you're worried about, it's not going to help you that much.
Yeah.
So that's that's a real thing. But the good thing about walking is it helps you break the pattern of worrying, because anyone could say, well, what's the pattern? I start worrying because this happened and that made me think about that and that made me think about that. And before you know it, zoom, zoom, zoom. I call that a cortisol cycle. I'm sorry, a
Okay.
cortisol spiral.
Spiral. Okay.
So here's the other valuable use for walking. So cortisol lasts in your body a lot longer than happy chemicals. Happy chemicals are more like a short spurt. Cortisol has a half-life of 20 minutes. That means after 20 minutes, your body excretes half of it. And then after 40 minutes, now you're done with three-quarters of it. So it takes about an hour to get rid of most of it. And if you don't, let's say in the first 20 minutes, everything's going to get on your nerves and it's going to seem like there's no solution to any of your problems, because our brain is designed that once cortisol turns on, it's designed to tell you to look for threats. So
Mm,
you only see threats. And then you release more cortisol and you see more threats and more cortisol and more threats.
mm.
So going for a walk is a very convenient, accessible way to interrupt that negative thought loop.
So tell us where can people anyone listening to this find more information about your what you do and your research?
Thank you. I have a website, innermammalinstitute.org, innermammalinstitute.org. I have a lot of books, videos, coaching, online course, and a free 5-day happy chemical jumpstart, which is one email on each of 5 chemicals that we've just
Mm.
gone over.
Okay. And the book before the interview, before we did the interview, with you reached out to me and you had given me your book, Happy, wait,
Habits,
Habits of a
habits
Happy
of a happy
Brain.
brain.
Okay. Uh, what made you write that book? Like, how did that book come about, writing that?
Oh, thank you. Well, as I said, I started reading a lot of books about monkeys, and one thing I was just amazed to learn, monkeys are very competitive. And then they feel good when they rise in the social hierarchy, because in the monkey world, it gets you more food and mating opportunity. And the more food builds muscle and it builds mother's milk. And that also means more surviving copies of your genes. And all of this is simple biology that has been known for a long time. And yet it's quite taboo and completely ignored in today's academic psychology and biology, because people want to have that peace and love view of nature and completely ignore these facts. But when I knew the facts, I was like so amazed. Like, wow, this explains everything. And I found it very relieving and relaxing to say, wow, you know what? There's no, I could stop feeling all threatened about life because this is just how my mammal brain sees the world. So that's how I just, I quit my day job and I just put more and more into learning about this and writing about this.
Oh, that's good. I love the inside stories of all of this, and that led to the
Inner
Mammal
Mammal
Institute, Inner
Institute.
Mammal Institute,
Yeah.
and everything that you're doing now. That is fantastic. So, just anything else you want to, any last word you want to say to
Yeah,
our
you might be
audience?
interested in. My husband was in a similar situation, sounded like what you mentioned. So when the lockdowns happened,
Hmm.
he started running.
Okay.
And I no, I'm sorry. When he always ran. When the lockdowns happened, he started increasing his running,
Mm.
and he increased it a lot, like a real lot. And that was harmful, and
Mm.
he really did permanent damage.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So that that's I think a cautionary tale for people because I'm so surrounded by this mindset of like work through, ignore the pain, plow through the pain and underweighs the permanent damage you can do. So then my husband needed another way to exercise. And I learned how hard it is for a person to switch from one kind of exercise to another. Your identity is sort of tied into it, it's
Hmm.
interesting. So I said, well, you could go to a gym. We have a gym on every corner. There's 3 gyms near our house. Just go visit them, and I had to push him a few times. And finally he joined a gym and he's been going. Um, and that's some number of years now. He's a little bit tempted, I think, to still get that joy of dopamine and serotonin by exceeding his limits, and then maybe ending up doing some damage.
Oh boy.
But but not too bad.
Well, very good. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to come on and talk about your happy chemicals, talk about the effect of walking, since it's the Walking for Health and Fitness podcast. I thank you very much for being a guest, and continue success with your institute and with
Oh,
your book writing.
can I
Oh,
tell you
sure, of course,
another walking story in my daily
please.
life? You'll love this.
All right.
So I love to travel. That's my personal addiction. So when we travel, I end up walking like 8 miles a day. And at home, I could never walk that much.
Mhm.
And even when I'm traveling, I don't intend to walk that much. I often feel like I can't take another step. And yet, there's something so cool in the distance that you've dreamt about for years that you can't wait to see it, which is that's dopamine. And then it's like, okay, so I walk another block and another mile. And then you're so exhausted, you got to go back to the hotel and like you end up walking a half a mile in the metro just to get to the train.
Right.
So my husband has the mileage
Hmm.
counter, and I'm always amazed that like, oh my God, we walked 8 miles. And then I always think when I get home, oh, now I've really built up. Now I'm going to be able to do 8 miles, but I can't. If I don't have that Eiffel Tower in the distance, which is again that
That dope.
dopamine goal,
Right.
then I can't do it. But I find that when I'm listening to a book that I love, that I just zip up that hill and I don't even notice. But when I'm listening to a book that I'm bored with, I'm tired and it's hard.
Mhm.
And so I finally learned like I should just give up on the book I don't like and start another book.
Start a new one. So bringing it full circle, knowing how the brain operates is what's giving you more pleasure. walking to the Eiffel Tower is a lot better than walking up that hill by your house. Just gives you that more dopamine hit, that more motivation to get uphill. Well, great way to end this. Thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on. That's Dr. Loretta Breuning and her book, Habits of a Happy Brain. Did I get that right? Yes, I did.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Maybe I say the whole title, Habits of a Happy Brain, retrain your brain to boost your serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphin levels.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that was Dr. Loretta Breuning, author, researcher, and founder of Inner Mammal Institute. Now, I hope you enjoyed that deep dive into how our happy chemicals shape the way we move, think, and feel. If this episode gave you the aha moment, take action on it. Go for a walk, tune into your mood, maybe even try one of the simple brain rewiring tips she shared, like pairing your walk with something you truly enjoy. Now, to learn more about Dr. Breuning's work, visit innermammalinstitute.org, where you'll find free resources, her books, and her very popular and free program, 5-Day Happy Chemicals Jumpstart. So check that out. If you're ready to create walking habits that stick, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, leave a quick rating or review, and visit walkingforhealthandfitness.com. There you'll have many more support tools, resources, free resources like my Walking Inspiration newsletter, and many videos and blog posts. Until next time, keep walking, keep smiling, and remember, your next step might be your next breakthrough. This is Frank for Walking for Health and Fitness. Walk on. And check out the next video I have queued up for you. I put everything in a series to help you on your journey to better health and fitness. This is Frank. Walk on.